All right, so if we look, we'll see all the chapters are already listed there, and you just click on those folders for files. And if we go back to our course schedule, since this is your first week, it's kind of a reminder. This is what's due. So you'll notice when we take our first test, all the Friday after January the 30th, which is like February the 3rd, I think, or 2nd, all the Learn Smarts and quizzes for the first 3 chapters go away, okay? And some of you have already gotten started and gotten in it. I'll look next week to make sure everyone's in, doing the Learn Smarts, doing the quizzes. But what they'll do is they'll help you learn the content. So raise your hand if you've already gotten into the Connect Learn Smarts. Some of you have. So it's going to make you learn it, whether you want to or not, right? It makes you practice the content.
It's super handy.
It's super handy.
It is awesome.
It teaches you how to learn.
Really
yeah,
does.
it really reinforces, and you can read about it if you're not sure. You have a little icon you can enjoying it. Yeah, it helps a lot, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then the online quizzes will be kind of the last thing you do of the chapter. And again, those online quizzes are where I will take the questions for the exams from. So if you want to print those, then you'll have copies of those, okay?
On those online quizzes, do you have 2 chances?
2 chances,
on
every single
quiz?
one of them, every quiz.
Okay.
And you do those at home.
Okay.
So we'll do our in-class exam on the 30th, and then you'll turn in assignment 1. And so if you need help on assignment 1, if it's your first day, stay after class and I'll go back over that with you, okay? Back on the learning modules, again, here's how to use our ebook and Connect. And then the syllabus is on the getting started. And then our course schedule, you can email me from this page, so I'll know what class you're in. Your assignment instructions, again, you click on that. There's your folders. You'll notice assignment 2's there. I printed assignment 1 for you, but I won't print the rest of the assignment instructions. You'll just go to Blackboard to get it. So if you lost it, you can go back and get it. And then also, help with calculations. If you're struggling, there's a link you can click on, and it will help you with calculations. And Nutrition Websites is kind of it's a library site. And like maybe you don't get carbohydrates, you can click on that. It has a whole lot of things, videos, all sorts of things. It's helpful, okay? So, I think we're ready. You guys feel ready to go? Yes, go ahead and question. The book?
Yeah.
The ebook?
Did you say we could rent the book from the people for $25?
You can actually, after you purchase the code,
Yeah.
the access code that lets you do the Connect, you can buy the nutrition hardbound book that you put in a 3-ring binder for $25 from the publisher.
Okay.
So on the side under Connect, once you put your code in, it'll say loose leaf copies, and you click on that link and it'll let you buy it then, and it's $25, and they'll ship it 2 days for free. So it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
Right?
okay.
You could probably sell it back on Amazon, make your money back, and then some. Just saying, because it's like the regular book you're buying in the bookstore that's $300 for $25. It's a pretty sweet deal, right? So,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any more questions on that?
But you have to spend the 90 up front.
You have to spend the 90 up front to get it. But it's still cheaper than hardbounds were $300 and something in the past. Yeah. So we're still saving a lot of money. Plus you get the practice of the Connect. Okay, so let's dive into our chapter. I'm going to try recording. Today's going to be a new... Let's see if I can find it right. I want to make sure I do it right. Okay. So... there we go. I'm practicing, and so we're going to get this little recording thing down. All right, so we're not going to go through the learning objectives in the class, but you guys can go back through those. Basically, it's just teaching you all what we're going to do in the chapter. All right, so let's get some definitions down. Some of these definitions are kind of, I heard some people say, I'm never going to memorize all these definitions. It's a lot. And they are kind of a little bit, there's a lot to them, but we'll just kind of get the breakdown of what they mean. So EARs, it looks like years, right? And so estimated average requirement, this is what meets the needs for about 50% of the population group. So about half of the population group, these are the needs for the nutrients that they need. But for most people, this is not important because we want to meet the RDAs, meeting the needs for 97 to 98% of the population. So when you hear about, okay, how much of this nutrient do I need, how much of that nutrient do I need, most people use the RDAs. When you guys work on your assignment 2, where it asks you about how you're meeting the RDA for each nutrient, you'll do the RDAs and not the EARs. So if you have a book, or if you have someone who has a book, you can go to the very back of your chapter. Let's take a look at your appendix. If you have an appendix in your online book, it's going to say other materials. But in the very back of your book, in these little appendix tables, it has the RDAs for certain nutrients. The extra tables are, you may have to find the,
Under the table of contents,
you find table of contents?
well, yeah, but on the table of contents, it's only given just the chapter 1, and then the, 1 through 3.
Okay, I may have to put it on the overhead and we'll have to practice more. But if you look in your appendix, if you have it, or someone next to you has one, you'll find the nutrient needs for different population groups. For children, women who are pregnant, men. And you can use these tables to help you determine what the needs of the patient are. All right, so let me show you in the overhead. If you're in the online class, it's Appendix J. Appendix J. So let me show you what that looks like. It's going to toggle off. It always, for whatever reason, toggles off. All right, so if you look, see how it shows children, males, females, and different age groups. And you can see the needs for protein, vitamin A, C, E. So you can see for most nutrients, we have the recommended, this is the EAR, the estimated average requirements, but we also have the same kind of table for the RDAs for nutrients that's needed for the population. So you can see it varies depending on if the woman's pregnant, if she's breastfeeding or lactating, in different age groups. So these tables were developed so that we meet the needs of the population, okay? Because nutrient deficiencies used to be a huge deal until some of these guidelines were developed. In fact, your vitamins, if you look on the back of your vitamin bottle, you'll notice that, where it talks about meeting the needs of the RDA. So if you look, you'll notice those things. So the whole point of having it develop is to help prevent deficiency diseases and illnesses due to lack of nutrients by the population. So there's a group that gets together, the Food and Nutrition Board that gets together, and it's scientists from all over the world, and they get together and they decide what the population needs based on research. So they have wars sometimes, like fights. Like for a while, vitamin C was a big war. So there was a group called the Linus Pauling Group, and they were doing vitamin C research, and they said, whoa, the RDAs aren't high enough for vitamin C. So they've been fighting with this board for a long time. They say it's not even coming close to meeting the needs. And so they kept showing research where we do need more vitamin C, so they upped the RDAs for vitamin C. See how that works? So if they have enough research, they can set the RDAs and it's like, okay, this is what we think the population needs. And so they set the RDAs. The AIs are things that they're still fighting on, the board. They're like, we think this is how much we need, but we can't establish these strict guidelines yet. We need more data. Okay? So for example, fiber. So we call it adequate intakes or AIs. So we think we know how much fiber people need, but they're still fighting it out, so there's no RDAs yet. So for example, we'll say 25 to 35% is the AI for fiber. Does that make sense? Someday they'll determine how much fiber we actually need and it'll become our RDA. But until then, we're AI. Okay? Does that make sense? So some nutrients, they just don't have enough data yet and they're still working it out. ULs are the max. Upper level intake. That's a maximum amount you need. You get any higher than that, you're going to start having excessive amounts that can cause when we talk about overnutrition, it can even cause death or all kinds of illnesses. For example, the UL for vitamin C was set for 2,000 milligrams. Any higher than that, you can have diarrhea. It can cause kidney stones. Did you know that? If you get too much vitamin C, it can cause kidney stones. Yeah. So they set the UL for a lot of nutrients. A lot of minerals have a UL for it because they can be toxic. Some vitamins will have UL set because they can become toxic. You go any higher than that, you're getting in toxicity. You know, we were talking about my husband doing the gummy bites last week. Instead of eating 2, eating a handful of them. He was getting beyond the ULs for vitamin A or vitamins. I was like, dude, you're in the ULs for vitamin D and vitamin A because those can become toxic. So you want to be careful that you don't take in too much. So they have to set these ceilings, basically, is what the ULs are. Don't go any higher, okay? And you'll be watching your patients. They think a little is good, a lot's even better. So you don't want to be in the UL range. And EERs, the estimated energy requirements, what we've determined that the population as a whole needs based upon age, gender, and so forth. And then we have, see, I told you a lot of terms, AMDRs, acceptable macronutrient distribution range. Okay, so I'm going to write these on the board because this is one that you're going to have in your homework assignment. Let's select the pen. Let me check the color, make sure it's the right color. Black. Okay. I'm trying out all these new tools and tricks. All right, so let's talk about carbs. I'm going to try writing with my new pen. All right, so the AMDR, acceptable macronutrient distribution range. Okay, this is for adult population. This is the range that is acceptable for carbs. And the range that is determined by this board is 45 to 65%. Okay, that's considered normal. Okay, for fats, this goes in your homework assignment, right? When you do that Pizza Hut assignment, you're going to see how it meets the AMDRs. 20 to 35% of the daily intake. Hope you guys can read that, the alternate sides. And then protein. You hear a lot of people on high protein diets, and so this is kind of one thing you want to watch out for. Are we in the acceptable range, or are we going in too high? So protein set at 10 to 35%. Oops, sorry, that's an ugly 3. Still learning how to use this little pen. So these are the AMDRs for carbs, fats, and protein. Carbs 45 to 65, fats 20 to 35%, protein 10 to 35%. And so when you do your first assignment with the Pizza Hut assignment, you'll check and see, hey, how did my intake compare to what the AMDR is saying I need? So say someone's on a high protein diet and they're getting, say, 50% of their daily intake is protein. Is that too much? According to the Food and Nutrition Board, they're saying it is, right? But then we get into diabetic patients that are trying to watch their carbs, right? And so do they really need 65% of their diet as carbs? Probably not, especially simple carbs. And so then we're like, well, you need to go down the scale if you're diabetic. Maybe half of your calories should be carbs, or maybe even 45%. You see what I'm saying? If you're physically fit, you're active, you're young, yeah, you can probably have 65% of your diet as carbs and be fine, because carbs provide energy. However, if you're watching blood sugars, and those carbs can help raise the blood sugar, so you kind of want to back down on it. And you want to look at high fiber carb foods, not just soda and so forth. So this is a range that the board has determined that we need to help keep us healthy. Okay? Does this make sense?
Yes, but
Go
on
ahead.
this assignment,
Mhm.
it does ask that question about the macronutrient
Uh-huh.
distribution, and then, okay, but it also asks for saturated fats.
Saturated fats. Okay, yeah, good question.
So like on that is,
So,
that lists that, but.
Saturated fats are part of your total fats, right? Good question. So sat fats, we call them, right? Saturated fats. I'm trying to get used to this new electronic pen. So saturated fats should be 10% or less
Of the AMDR.
of the AMDR. Yeah.
So the answer's 10%.
Or 5. Yeah, well, in the American Heart Association, it says 5 to 7%. So depending on which group you're talking about, it varies. But according to the AMDR, we say less than 10% of sat fats. Okay. Of the acceptable, that's supposed to be percentage, if I can get my other little deal down. Boy, this is rough. I don't know if I'm going to like this pen or not. It's going to take me a bit to get used to. But this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. And we're getting ready to talk about the label and here in just a bit. So you guys have any more questions? Does that help you in your homework assignment? All right. Yeah, you have a question? Go ahead.
We can't really see the screen because your picture thing is in the way.
This little thing up here? Is that better?
No, to show us where you are, the
Uh-huh.
little video thing, is in the way of our screen.
Okay, let me see, because I'm learning how to use this now too. Let's see if I can get rid of it. I don't know if I can drag him. This is one of the things I was a little concerned about. Let me see if I can just move the slide. Let's see if this helps. Let's try this. Keep. No, I don't know where my ink went. I'm learning, all right. It may take me a bit to get this down. Let me put it on the overhead. I was hoping I could use this just to record because it's not going to record from the overhead. But let's try it on the overhead real quick, so you guys at least have it. So carbs are supposed to be what? Carbs are what? What percentage of the AMDR? 45 to 65. Fats are 25 to 35. Can you guys see that? Protein? 10 to 35. And then saturated fats? Less than 10%. Yes. All right. Is that good? Is that helpful?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So now we'll go back to the slideshow.
So is it 20% or 25? On your fats, ma'am, we got 20 to 35.
20 to 35. Yes, sorry. Yes, that's 20 to 35. Sorry. 20 to 35 is correct. Yes, sorry. Good. That is correct. 20 to 35%. Okay? You guys are good? All right, let's keep going. So you know think time's coming up, right? All right. So I need your definitions. So let's go. The definitions for RDA, UL, AI, and EAR. Here. So what are the definitions for each of these? And you can simplify it if you want to. If you want to simplify it. Use your own words. That's always good. So what is the definition for RDA, UL, AI, and EAR?
You've been reading for...
make sure your name's at the top of the page because you're going to turn these in for points, right? So you want to make sure you get credit, right? It's 5 points each. I think the microphone must be on in Idabel, maybe. Okay, and if you want to just write down if you need the initials, and you can go back and finish it at the end of class. But I'd like you guys to kind of play around with this. Go look at some vitamin labels and look at what percent of the RDA. So you think about, if I just ate my recommended amount, what percent of the RDA would I be getting for nutrients versus like if I decide to eat a handful of them. Always a bad idea with adult or children's vitamins, right? How much of the RDA am I going to be getting for nutrients? Kind of start getting a feel for that, because again, you're going to be dealing with patients. This is real world scenario, right? But you do want them to meet the RDA, right? Because especially like children, they're not getting enough nutrients. They may not be growing properly. The brain may not be developing properly. So you do want to try to meet the RDA is kind of our goal in life. All right, so then we talk about nutrient dense, how much nutrition the food has versus the kilocalories it has. And so we look at nutrient-rich foods. Can you think of any nutrient-dense or nutrient-rich foods? Something with a lot of nutrition for the amount of calories. Can you think of anything? Would meat be nutrient-dense type food? Like beef? Sure. Milk? Sure. What about soda? Is there a lot of nutrients? No. So we call those empty calorie foods. We call it junk foods, right? The things that you're not getting very many nutrients for a lot of calories. So soda, candy, chips, all those are empty calorie foods. So we call them energy dense, a lot of calories for the amount of nutrients you're getting. But nutrient dense, you're getting a lot of nutrients for the amount of calories. So let's use an example. So this is showing you an example, and you guys can go play with it. This is comparing whole milk to soda. All right, so look at the nutrients you would find in whole milk for the same amount of calories you would find in soda. Okay, typically though, we're not, unless we're a young child, we usually don't recommend whole milk, right? We usually recommend low-fat milk. Okay, so then let's take a look at the difference between a potato versus that potato chips. That's always fun. All right, so you can see that you're getting a lot more nutrients in a potato versus that of potato chips. Okay, and then let's look at an orange compared. You guys ever eat oranges? This is a good time of year to eat oranges compared to a Hershey bar. So we can see a lot of stuff in vending machine, not so great, right? Not so nutrient dense. And students always say, well, I don't have time to eat a great snack or whatever. Is orange pretty portable? Can you throw an orange in your bag or an apple? Absolutely. So I'm like, it's about as portable to me as a bag of chips, right? Are you getting a lot more nutrients? Is it a lot more nutrient dense? Absolutely. So you're getting some valuable nutrients with oranges compared to that, of course, of a Hershey bar. All right. So now this is your next think time. So which food is more nutrient dense? And they're equal to a cup. A cup of berries, that's A, or B, this is the little Coca-Cola. So A or B, which is more nutrient dense? So that should be kind of easy, right? A or B. Now, we talk about energy dense means it has a lot of kilocalories for the weight of the food. All right. So we're looking at some food items that we're going to weigh about the same. This is actually from a meal. That's a Big Mac meal. And the other is ground turkey patties with some fresh greens, tomatoes, cucumbers. So I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember what the white thing was. Maybe it's radishes. So which food is more energy dense? When we talk about energy dense, a lot of kilocalories for the weight of the food. The McDonald's meal or the other meal. By the way, when we look at the kilocalories of that meal, and I took it straight off their menu, is that a lot of kilocalories for one meal? That's incredible. Are you getting a lot of nutrients in that meal? No, not so much, right? Not so much. So we have a lot of empty calories in this meal. Making you think about it, right? And so then we have established the Food and Drug Administration monitor food labels, and they set the food labels for children over the age of 4. And it's you're roughly basing it on the RDAs, but it's based on a 2,000 calorie diet. And so when we look at the nutrient facts and we look at a label, it tells us a lot about what's in the product, and it tells us what kind of nutrients are there. So, for example, it has to have proteins, fats, carbs, saturated fats, trans fats, sodium, cholesterol, and often they'll put fiber in there too. Sometimes they'll put other vitamins occasionally on a food label, like vitamin A, vitamin C. Now they're even putting vitamin D and iron, but they're only in percentages. So I'm going to let you look at a food label here in a little bit, and we'll take a look at it. By the way, when you look at a food label and you look at the order of ingredients, they're going from the one in the highest weight is the first thing on the label down to the lowest. And we'll take a look at what that looks like here in a second. Again, this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Also on the labels, they'll often show you based on a 2,500 calorie diet. But say you're me, you're not so tall, not so young. I only need 1,800 kilocalories per day. So when you look at the percentages, is it off a little bit for me? Yeah, of course, right? Because I'm not very tall. So you can see the label and what it's showing you. We took a look at those last week. So you see the calories listed. You see the calories from fat. And you'll see the rest of the things. We talked about total fat, saturated fat, trans fat, cholesterol, sodium, total carbohydrates. And you also notice total fiber and sugar on this label, and then you'll see the protein. It also has some other things listed. Now let's look at the ingredient list. So if we look at the ingredients of this item, it's macaroni and cheese, it looks like. So the first thing on the list is enriched macaroni product, and it's made from durum wheat flour, glycerol, monostearate, salt, niacin, ferrous sulfate, thiamine, mononitrate. So the first thing you see on the list is durum wheat flour. Excuse me. Would that be in the highest concentration of this food item? The flour is going to be the one in the highest amount in the food item. The last thing on the label is yellow dye number 5. Would that be the lowest thing found on the food? Yeah, it's in the least amount in the least quantities. So let's take a look. I know you online students aren't going to be able to see this, but my IT Geek students will be able to see it. So let's take a look at some cereal boxes, because I like to look at labels. See if we can get this one on. I like to look at the real deal. This is Rice Krispies. So if we look, all right, and remember, we're going to take a look at this. You guys are working with diabetic patients. You think you're going to want to look at total carbs, your fiber, your sugars? Absolutely, right? So we're taking a look at what's in this item, right? And again, this is showing you with and without milk. If we look at the top, it shows you the calories without milk and with milk. You guys ever look at your cereal labels when you're eating cereal? Yeah.
No, I don't want to know what sugars in it.
You don't want to know. Look at the protein, all right? So here's the other nutrient. By the way, when you look at all the nutrients in cereal, you'll look like, wow, 25% of the RDA, right? A lot of B vitamins. Like, that's pretty good, isn't it? So breakfast cereals are one of the most fortified food items on the market. Did y'all know that? Little kids' breakfast cereal. Number one. Yeah, they put a lot of sprayed on vitamins on these foods. Okay. Now let's look at the ingredient list. See, here's the calories based on 2,000 calories or a 2,500 calorie, what is recommended for the RDA. All right, so now let's look at the ingredients. So the ingredient in the highest amount would be which one?
Right.
Yeah, rice. All right. So the ingredient in the smallest amount in this food item would be they're still in order, by the way.
Vitamin D and B12.
Yeah, or maybe BHT. Yeah, I'd say probably BHT. They kind of have a weird, funky label, don't they? Probably BHT. Ah, you're like, what is BHT? All right, it's a stabilizer to keep fats from becoming rancid. Kind of helps to keep things from oxidizing and altering in your cereal. And you're like, well then, that's a lot of ingredients though, just for cereal. So if we look, what's the second ingredient in the cereal? Sugar. All right. Let's take a look at Cheerios. Multi-grain Cheerios. You guys already kind of have an idea of what might be taking place on the food list. Same thing. We look at the top label. We look at the grams of carbs. We look at sugars. We look at fiber. Kind of gives us an overall picture of what we're getting ready to eat. Our saturated fats, our trans fats, protein. And we look, lo and behold, look how many sprayed on vitamins you're getting in minerals, right? Here we go. So now let's go to the label. See the ingredient list. All right. So the number one ingredient in this product is oats. Yeah, the whole grain oats. And you notice they put whole grain, right, to make sure you know you're eating whole grain. So would that be a better thing to do probably? Eat Cheerios versus Rice Krispies? Of the two, yeah. You're getting more whole grains, that's for sure. We see sugar listed, right? It's ingredient number what? 3. Yeah, ingredient number 3. And then we see all the vitamins and minerals. I like it because sometimes they just show you their chemical names and people are like, wait a minute, niacinamide? That kind of sounds scary, right? It's actually vitamin B6. So you see the ingredient. So which one do you think is in the least amount? It's kind of hard to tell, isn't it, from the label. Probably vitamin D3, but hard to tell. Not really sure. Usually the label has to be exactly out, so it's not showing it any other way. So you see vitamin B12 is the, or actually D3, vitamin D3 would be the least amount. All right, so now let's look at something that's like we looked at last week. This little banquet, cheesy smothered charbroiled patty melt. Yay. All right. Ingredients on this one. Might not be able to find the ingredients since it's medically button cut off. I didn't double check it before I dug it out. Let's get something else. Let's do this one. These are Totino's pizza rolls. You guys that eat Totino's pizza rolls. You know, deeply satisfying, snack-defying, satisfying. This is a list of ingredients, by the way.
I could have swore one time on Totino's that had anchovies in it.
And some of them may have anchovies. Look at the ingredient list. Okay, this is going to be your think time. You ready? Alright, so this is all the ingredients in this one little food product. But just look how many ingredients. Can you count them? How many ingredients do you think that has, by the way? If you had to guess. That's a lot, huh? So let's just do the first um, the first one in highest amount. So which ingredient is in the highest amount in this food item? Yeah, this is your think time. Yeah, go ahead. Write it down on your think time. So many preservatives you're seeing in these. Does that ever make you wonder what you're eating? Is it always that great of idea to get that many preservatives in your life? Yeah, you're thinking about it, aren't you? All right. Now let's go down to the ingredient in the least amount. Which ingredient in the least amount? Your think time. Which ingredient is in the least amount on this food item? Which ingredient's in the least amount on the food item? So what ingredient's in the least amount in the food item? And we see some allergy information on there too, don't we? All right, so the ingredient in the least amount, right? Right. So then we see our new allergy information, which is great for people like me with celiac disease, right? I have to avoid wheat, rye, and barley. So I look on there and I'm like, I can't have these, right? Which I already knew I couldn't. But
So that at the bottom that contains wheat, milk, and soy, that's your allergy.
that's your allergy information, brandy, right? So let's do a think time. What allergy information are we finding on this label? What allergens are in this food item? What's your think time? What are allergens are in this food item? Now, not all labels will have it, but they're getting better with it. Now, the Food and Drug Administration, they carefully regulate food labels. Surprisingly, they check all the items. They have to be on what we call a GRAS list, generally recognized as safe. And they'll take samples occasionally and test them, and they have to match up exactly what the label says. Okay? So, I mean, they really watch what goes into food. They also have to give the information where the company is, the name of the company, where they're located. And so that way if you have an issue, you can contact the company. That's how they track things down if there's food contamination issues. Okay. So there's a lot on the food label, isn't there? All right, so let's take a quick look back at the top of the label. Let's see if we can do a calculation. Okay, so there's a little soup label attached to it. I need to share it loose. So if we look at this label, we see total grams of fat, we see total grams of carb, and total grams of protein. So this is your next think time. So write down the grams of fat, right? Total fat, total carb, and total protein, and then calculate the kilocalories of each of those, and then the total for the food item. So write down the grams of fat, total carb, total protein, and then show me the calculations to calculate the kilocalories, right? So fat, you would multiply times what? 9. Carbs, you multiply times 4. Protein, you multiply times 4. Good. So do the math. You guys bring your calculator, I hope. You can use your phone for a calculator. Y'all are getting good at food labels, aren't you? And they do the total kilocalories for this food item. And this is all based on a single serving, right? A serving. And then if we look, it says a serving, there's 2 servings per container. So if you eat the whole thing, right, you're going to multiply the whole thing times 2, obviously, okay? So how did you guys come out on total kilocalories? What's your total kilocalories? 345? Did you get rest of you guys get the same? So what did they have to do? They had to round it up on the food label, yes. And you'll see that the percent calories from fat is 160. Did you guys get that? What did you have? 153. Okay, so somewhere they probably on the label they probably went down on digits based on the rounded down. Okay, so you can kind of see how they're doing it, but it also tells you what percent of this meal is fat, and you can calculate it for yourself. See how it meets up with AMDR. So quite a few calories just for a little snack food, right? You're thinking about it, aren't you? Right? So this gives us a lot of practice. I want you guys to be able to not only just do it for homework, but you're going to be working with patients. You're going to have to explain the labels to them because they get really confused by the labels. Plus, I want you, before you even buy foods and put it in your cart, take a look, see what you're putting and bringing in your home, what you're putting in your body or your family's body. I was going to show you in the overhead too. If you look on the outside of a box of cereal, a lot of them will have the high points on them. Let's take a look real quick. I know the online people aren't going to be able to see this, but you in ITV land can. So these are like some key advertising factors. So they may say a good source of vitamin D, or look at the calories are pretty low. No saffrons, only 6 grams of sugar. And this is the Rice Krispie one. See, look at the vitamin C, the vitamin A. So this is kind of like at a glance advertisement. Now they've added vitamin D in cereal. Why do you think they add vitamin D to cereal? Because people aren't getting enough vitamin D. They start putting it in cereal, right? So you can look at these at a glance and decide, look at the calories, look at the sodium, the sugars, and the other nutrients there. Hey, I might buy the cereal. It's all about at a glance. So that's kind of a shortcut thing that they've just started doing recently. Okay. All right, so you guys ready to take a look at the next think time? So this is the Nature Valley granola bar, and you'll see the ingredient list, okay? So serving is 2 bars, and it's made of 6 grams of fat, 30 grams of carb, 4 grams of protein. And you'll see the ingredients: whole grain oats, sugar, canola oil, yellow corn flour, brown sugar syrup, salt, soy lecithin, and natural flavor. So question 1, which item is in the highest amount and the lowest amount in this food item? Which item is in the highest amount and the lowest amount? Scoot him over. And what is the kilocalorie content of 2 granola bars? Show me your calculations. And then 1 granola bar. Show me your calculations. So which ingredient is in the highest amount and the lowest amount? And what is the kilocalorie content of 2 granola bars? Show me your calculations. And I took this right off the label. This would be like your homework assignment, except you don't have to show the ingredients. Okay, well, hopefully you guys are getting pretty good at this, so you learn how to do it. So the FDA carefully regulates food labels, and they really check things. You can't just make any kind of health claim you want on a food label versus supplements, right? I told you supplement industry is wide open. You can make pretty much whatever claim you want. You don't have to make sure it's pure. Supplements are kind of dangerous, but versus our food's carefully regulated. So, good examples on page 50 and 51, it talks about some health claims that can be made, some nutrient content claims. For example, if it's sodium-free or salt-free, it has to have less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. Some health claims that they have now allowed as a diet rich in calcium may reduce the risk of osteoporosis. A diet low in sodium may reduce hypertension. So there's only a few actual health claims that can be made. But if a food is, say, low in saturated fat, it has to meet the requirements by the FDA. It's carefully regulated. Okay, they can get in a lot of trouble and fined if they don't follow the regulations. We're not going to do that one. Actually, we haven't done percentages, so let's go ahead and do percentages. So let's go ahead and calculate this one. So this is a pizza meal that contains 10 grams of protein, 20 grams of fat, 40 grams of carbs. So what is the kilocalorie content of the meal? Let's do that one first. And then what are the percentages of protein, fat, and carbs for the meal?
Is this the thing?
Sure, think time. Yeah. Let's go ahead and do another one. That way we can do the percentages. This one's kind of a nice one because it's kind of even numbers. Okay. So what was the total kilocalories for the pizza meal? What did you guys come up with?
380. What was it? What did you have?
What was the total kilocalories for the meal? Did you guys come up with the same thing? 380. What do you have? 380. Okay, good. All right. So let's do the percentages on it. Let me show you how to do it. Kind of a run through. Let's try our white screen. All right. So how many kilocalories total? Oops. How many kilocalories? I have to go grab my pen. Let me get my black pen. We're total for protein. What do you have? 40. All right. So this is protein. So 40, how will you do percentages? 40 by the total number of calories, which is 380 times 100, right, to get percentages. Okay, and this would be protein. And so what do you have? What do you guys have? 10.5? Everyone have the same thing? All right. So what are the total kilocalories for fat?
47%.
Okay, so total kilocalories though were what? How many kilocalories? Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna put kilocalories there. 180 kilocalories divided by 300. Let's put our units here. Total. You're going to cross those out, right? Times 100. Can you guys see this all right? And this is for fat. Equals what? 47.4. Did everyone have the same thing? 4%. All right. Now let's do the carbs. What is carbs? 160 total carbs divided by 380 for total for the whole meal or the whole bar times 100 equals what? 42.1. All right, so we total it all up, and it should equal around 100%. Right? So that's how we can determine what percent of that bar is proteins, fats, and carbs. Right? Everyone have the same thing? Y'all ready? Y'all good? Can you see it at the other sides? All right, so now let's go back to our black screen. Oh, no, not that one. Let's go unblack. There we go. Went black, didn't it? All right, got dark on us. All right, good. All right. So again, the dietary reference, daily reference values are based on 2,000 calorie diet. Also have 2,500 calories that are often listed. Okay. Also, when we talk about something is enriched versus fortified, what's the difference between enriched and fortified? You guys know the difference? Enriched means you put it back in the food item if it's lost during the processing. Fortified means it wasn't there anyway. So vitamin D wasn't in the Rice Krispies originally in the grains. It would be fortified with vitamin D, okay? And again, they're carefully regulated on food labels. Okay, things that affect the nutrient composition, how things are formed, ripeness of the food, how it's processed, are things lost during the process, things are during shipping, as it's stored, they'll lose nutrients, and then how we cook it. All right, so we've talked about high energy foods compared to those that are low energy density. Things like granola, nuts are really high energy. There's a lot of calories per gram of food. Okay. Food dietary guidelines for Americans. So this is kind of a big deal. They're telling Americans that we need to watch our sugar, reduce our sodium, do more whole grains instead of refined grains, alcohol in moderation. All those things that we're really not doing too much about. So there's a real big push to do better, exercise, maintain our body weight, all those things. But we really... Yeah, we haven't been following that too closely. So the USDA, the Health and Human Services, kind of help set up these dietary guidelines for Americans. Okay. So that's some other, use oils instead of solid fats, more potassium, vitamin C, vitamin D, whole grains, and so forth. All right, so list 4 dietary guidelines that you would like to follow for a healthier lifestyle. They're on page 56 and 57 in your book. So tell me 4 dietary guidelines. I went through some of those dietary guidelines. If you have a book, you might pick out something else that you want. So what are 4 dietary guidelines that you would like to start following? Maybe for your family too, right? What are 4 dietary guidelines that you want to start following? So 4 dietary guidelines that you want to adopt, okay, to your lifestyle. If you live in the dorms, can you still make better choices? Yeah. We had a coach that always said, stay away from the chicken pen. The chicken strips is what he was talking about, the fries and the chicken strip. Stay away from the chicken pen. I was trying to watch his athletes and kind of what they were eating. Page 59 in your book has some suggestions if you want to help to improve your lifestyle choices. It's like do this instead of that. There's whole books that says eat this, don't eat that kind of thing. So anyway, ways that you can add some lifestyle choices to make better choices for your life. Okay. They used to have the My Pyramid thing, and now it's myplate.gov. And in fact, Michelle Obama is the one that brought this one about. And it kind of caused some issues at first because people didn't know what to do with it. So you guys will have a homework assignment on choosemyplate.gov, so you'll go to that one a little bit later. But basically the plate, you'll notice, is divided in half. And we always say make half of your plate fruits and vegetables. Always a good option, always. You see, fruits makes a smaller portion than vegetables, but load up half your plate with fruits and vegetables and you'll start feeling better. And then you'll see the other half, you'll split between the grains and the protein, and then low-fat dairy. The 5 food groups on the My Plate is on page 62. Grains, vegetables, fruit, like we talked about, dairy. And then you have your protein group, and then we add oils is the last one, okay? So this is just showing you what a serving size is equivalent to. We also have references that you can use when you're working with patients. Sometimes patients go a little overboard on serving sizes like most Americans do. So 3 ounces of meat is about the same as a deck of cards. A large apple, orange, about the same size as a baseball. And you'll see like a baked potato, a serving is about like a tennis ball. Most of us want to get the giant one. So this kind of helps you regulate and kind of control your portion sizes. So it's just showing you some example how to pick foods from the My Food Group from the My Plate. We talked about the difference between enriched versus fortified. I'm going to show you something here in a little bit. This is showing you different kinds of bread. The orange bars are the nutrients in whole grain bread. The purple bars are in enriched bread where they added the nutrients back that was lost during process. And then the blue bars are the unenriched bread. So if you look at this whole grain bread, the orange bars, do you notice anything difference between it and the enriched versus the unenriched? Which one has the most nutrients of all? The whole grain, the enriched, or the unenriched? Whole grain. And so what you'll notice is that even though we're adding some nutrients back in the enrichment process, we're not putting them all back. For example, look at the zinc. See how the whole grain bread has a lot more zinc than the enriched bread? So my husband likes White Wonder Bread. I'm picking on him all the time. He's my example that I have to use. He came from the Wonder Bread generation, that White Wonder Bread. And he liked the taste of the Wonder Bread. He does not like whole grain bread. And so is he going to lose out on some zinc in his diet? Some magnesium? Sure. So now the Wonder people have a whole grain white wheat. So it looks like the regular white bread, but it's whole grain bread. So I buy him that, and he still thinks he's getting white bread. But is he getting more nutrients? Sure. So if you have kids that say, I only like white bread, right? Switch over. They'll never notice the difference, right? He says it smells different, but other than that, he can't really tell the difference. Because you're getting a lot more fiber, you're getting a lot more nutrients with the whole grain. That's why it's very important to switch over. And you can see the unenriched is a very bad idea. You're losing out a lot of nutrients. So processing alone destroys a lot of nutrients. And they leave it behind. All right, so there you go. Next question. Which would be more nutrient dense? Whole grain bread or enriched white bread? All right, and so we're at the end of the class. If you have any questions and you need some help, I can help you out. If you guys have any questions, you need help on the homework, getting in the class. Not too bad today, right? Y'all feeling pretty confident with labels and percentages and what's in a label? And all of those abbreviations, right? We got past all that. So put your name on your think times. And McAllister, someone needs to turn them into Miss Bogard. And we'll call it a day. It's a short day, right?
Say something about homework assignments.
Yeah, if you need to go over the homework assignment 1, I can stay and help you. But it's not due until the 4th week. Remember, January the 30th. So if you need help, I can help you. All right, you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Go be healthy, right? Go be healthy.
Okay, so I need help to, like, purchase this thing.
Thank you. All right, so if you have any questions after class, and I'll be glad to help you.
This is my assignment. Can I turn this in to you, or?
Yeah, you're going to turn your assignment in class when it's due, when we take our test. Yeah,
okay.
you'll turn them in class. All right, have a good afternoon, class.
This assignment 1, part 1, it says, type it. Can we not type it?
You can handwrite it. Yes, you can handwrite it as long as you use neat handwriting. Okay, not messy like mine. Okay.
Okay.
And then enriched flour and, that. And actually.
So you can't upload it and turn it in?
That one's this one.
No,
This one's.
you'll want to turn it in class.
I thought it was that.
And you can't turn it in until the 30th?
Yeah. I have one more question.
Absolutely.
On the ebook, whenever we do our flashcards,
Uh huh.
I went through all of them, but I keep marking that I don't know so that I can keep doing them over and over again just to make sure. But now that I've gone through them, even though I've marked I don't know, do I get credit for them, or before it's due, do I need to go through there and mark that that I know it?
It doesn't matter. It'll tell you when you finished it, so you can go to your grades, and it'll post your grade when you're completed. If you notice in your
Okay, so just as long as I complete it, I get the grade.
yeah,
right?
as long as you complete it, it'll tell you when you're finished. You'll do those
Okay.
flashcards till it tells you you're finished, and you can always go back and recharge and practice on them too if you want to.
Yeah, that's what I did. I just put that I didn't know on all of them so that I could read, so that I could go back through them. And
Sure.
continue to go back through them.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day. I'll see you later.
You too.
Thanks.
No, what happened was I got it confused because he did that, so I'm gonna.
Okay, so can you help me purchase this book?
Mm-hmm.
I had erased it and
Make him up there.
Sorry, let me hang it up. There it went. Okay.
Do I need to purchase it from the Blackboard or from where I have it downloaded?
You can get it from Connect. Once you've logged into Connect, you can get it from Connect.
Well,
It may not let you do go to Connect.
You see, I
So
have
go to
it,
Connect and see.
well, I had an email, I saved it, and,
Yeah.
um,
So you're just going in. That's
oh,
okay.
wait. Cecil.
Go ahead and log in. Go ahead and
Log in
click
right
on
there?
that.
Okay.
They've changed it all. And you gave it a password, so you're gonna know what it is. And you get weather updates, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, this is the easiest thing I've ever
I'll show you how to get into it from Blackboard, which is really.
Well, and I have it,
Whoops, something is
Okay.
behind.
Oh, I know what it is, I know what it is.
Okay. You've tried?
Yeah. I just got in this class that
Yeah, I sent you an email back. Yay, she did. All right, there
Okay,
you go.
so-
Okay, so click on our class. So see anything in blue, so you know how to do it. And if you look on the side, it should tell you to buy it.
Purchasable
Yeah,
connector.
purchase, yeah. There you go. And see the loose leaf right there? Did you see it? And you want to go back?
Well, see, okay, this is where, okay, need to purchase by online.
Yep, right on. There you go.
Online Connect, all I have on there is the chemistry, so do I need to go through Blackboard to get the nutrition class on there?
Yeah, well, I'll show you. On our class, what you have to do is go into Blackboard, go to the learning modules. You saw that chapter 1, Science and Nutrition.
So is it now? I'll just-
In Blackboard.
Okay.
You saw how I went through those?
Yeah.
And click on that Science and Nutrition, and that'll put you in.
Oh, okay, here's the back.
But it ties it in with our Blackboard class that we're in.
Okay. And so all we have is the quiz and then the assignment that's on there.
And the Learn Smart. So the quiz, the Learn
Oh,
Smart.
no, I think it's right.
And
Is it on that list?
it's that Science and Nutrition, that's the practice flashcards to Learn Smart.
Okay.
And then the quiz is just an online quiz in Blackboard. Okay, and it's not timed.
Okay, so now payment.
Yeah, we'll get a little picture.
Oh, that's okay.
And then I wasn't here last week, so I didn't see how you got the 9s and the 4s in here, so I was gonna ask
Okay,
you
those
about
are
that.
given values for kilocalories, which is, macronutrients. So that's, there's 90 kilocalories per gram, carbs are 40 kilocalories per gram, such as 40.
Okay.
And it's my little neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's my neighbor.
Yeah. Well, that's handy, I could tell you.
Yeah.
Just right down the road.
Well.
So she always sells stuff for her ag, stuff like that. Yeah.
Are you still on?
Blueberries.
No, I got it.
Okay, so now review, payment.
Thank you.
You know how to do everything.
Yeah.
then. Good job. So it's not so
Hey,
hard.
do you have the
You'll be fine. And if you have any questions, you can email me.
Okay.
It's probably
Yeah,
best-
last night I couldn't get into it, so I was freaking out, and I didn't know
You're
if
fine.
we had stuff due yet or not.
Yeah, and I sent you an email.
Okay, yeah, I think I got it.
Yes. Are you kin to Bud? No.
He lives by me though.
Oh,
That's Miss Benson's granddaughter.
oh, okay. Yeah.
So,
Wow, I had her in school.
Thank you.
Did you? Miss Bud?
yes.
She was a great
Yes.
home ec teacher.
Have you been
Your
out to
grandmother
Cedar
is amazing.
Have you been out to Cedar Point lately? Like,
Uh-huh. I drove out to that way.
okay, well, her house is the new, one of the new big houses
I know, it's
out
really
there.
pretty. Yeah, I know where you, my sister lived actually in,
Oh, yeah.
one of your room houses.
yeah.
for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can't believe that you're that old, grown up. Wow, where did the time go? Yes, you have a wonderful family.
Thank you.
Tell your grandmother I said hi.
I'll-
She's the reason I'm in nutrition.
Okay, so now I just, okay, so now I'm going to connect now. Okay, so now, see, I
You
have,
paid it, yeah.
I've paid it, so now I've got my smart book.
Yeah, you're good.
So-
But you'll always go through Blackboard to post it, the grade level, okay?
Well,
If you do it in Connect, it doesn't always sync.
okay, well,
So what they tell you, they tell you something?
well, because whenever, okay, number one, it's easier for me to go to my,
Connect.
to my app.
Blackboard app. Is it Blackboard?
It's just, no, it's just my smart book app.
Oh.
So it's the McGraw-Hill Smart Book app. And
I didn't know
because,
Uh-huh.
well, because whenever I go over here to Blackboard and then so.
But go into Blackboard, is it showing your grade in Blackboard?
Uh-huh, yeah.
So
And-
it's syncing up?
Yes, and
They
I,
changed
and I
it.
don't know how it's doing that either. I
It
mean,
knows you.
that's what, well, that's what I was concerned about, that I was going
Because they
to
told us not to do that, but they were
Because-
gonna work on it.
see, okay,
Go to Science and Nutrition on the first one. Have you already done that one?
yes. How do I get to
I
it?
saved it, we'll see how it goes. It should scroll down and see if it's at the bottom. All the way bottom. Yep, there it is.
Yes.
It's working great. Look
Yeah.
at that. Yeah, you
So
taught me
see,
something.
so
yeah.
see, yeah, and
Mhm.
what I did was Because it seems like whenever I come over here and learning modules, and then I go from here,
It's slower.
okay, let me go to
It's
unit
neat to have
one,
an app for it though.
and then